Okay, guys, I am back for part 2 of Prophecy Updates and Miraculous Turnarounds. There is a part 1 to this video, just in case you have not seen it. It's up to you. You don't have to necessarily watch part 1. I mean, it's going to be the same type of material in part 2, so you'll still be able to get the picture and the message regardless. But just in case you want to see the full picture of what God is doing and how many examples and how many prophecies are being updated, you may want to check that out. But excuse me if it I always feel like I'm shouting sometimes in the videos, but for one, I'm always afraid, since I don't have like a microphone or anything like that, that the video will come out with me speaking too low and people won't be able to hear me. So I'm always making sure to project my voice loud enough. And if it's just loud, just obviously turn the volume down some. So I'd rather it be too loud, that way you can adjust and turn it down, than it be too quiet and we can't do anything about it. So, this is so exciting, oh my God. I mean, this message I'm preaching to myself as well. Like, even I, as I'm going through my own videos and prophecies, even I am just now realizing the full magnitude and scope of what's actually happening here, and how such a profound change and what a bountiful harvest is springing forth in all of the fruit that's actually being bared and what's actually occurring. Even I'm just now grasping the gravity of what's going on myself. That's amazing. All right, so I know I left off, I think, on vaccines, but before I do that, I kind of want to jump back to the Florida prophecies. And I know I touched on it briefly, saying that we had won some key seats, governmental seats, during the midterms in Florida. So that was a part of the harvest and miraculous turnaround, in a place that previously had gone through judgments and had judgment and, quite frankly, complete destruction hanging over their head. And that's not to say, like I said, that complete destruction is off the table completely, or one day in the future won't finally come. Those things will happen. But like I said, it's just getting postponed under grace, by the intercessory works of the righteous. And that's why the Lord is temporarily healing our land, so that harvest can occur. But in addition to us winning some key positions in Florida during the midterms, the other massive victory, hold on one second. I also noticed, going back to the whole abortion laws being passed, and how I was telling you guys it's not just Ohio, but 5 other states also have the heartbeat, no abortions after 6 weeks law already passed, and that a lot of other states are joining the fight to try and get laws passed in their state as well. And so, and that's what, when the iron is hot, you gotta strike. Once we start gaining ground and pushing through the enemy lines and having victories, we can't let up and become comfortable and put our swords down and go relax and eat bonbons and wait for the rapture. Whenever you see miraculous things moving, and whenever you see the Spirit of God, barreling down the tracks at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you gotta jump on that train. Once you see you have them and you're making headways, that's the time to rush in and not let them up. And you gotta hit them hard. Once we see these things coming together and happening, we gotta go in full force with prayer and intercession, and doing what we need to do to keep ourselves pure, so that these small victories can grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and go on to become even more massive victories to the point where we obtain total victories, and also to safeguard from the victories being overturned, because things can go backwards if you get lazy and you lay down and you let the enemy have a response or a rebuttal or a retaliation. But so yes, so speaking of the Florida prophecies, an update for that prophecy and a miraculous turnaround regards to that is that Florida happens to be one of the states that has passed an abortion limit law. Okay, so here we had a place that was under massive warning from the Lord of judgment and destruction on its way. They experienced a little bit of that fire and that judgment, but that purified and turned the hearts of God's people to the right place. That turned, a certain amount of people back to the Lord in repentance, and that got the bride's attention to, do intercessory. And because of that, the Lord has really moved miraculously in having some of these wicked practices overturn and reverse. And once the wickedness that, is even responsible for bringing the judgment in the first place, once those things are no longer happening, by law, the principalities in the demonic realm aren't going to have rulership over that territory anymore, and then judgment becomes less and less of a factor, and we can actually go in, like I said, and work and harvest, and true repentance can take place. And the kingdom can be built up in that territory. So that is huge, and it's just saying 18 states, 18 guys. This is such a major move that's happening through the country and the world. 18 other states have major abortion legislations this year. So 2019 is what we're talking about. That's the year. Remember that, 2019. Only one out of all 18 states, New York, seeks to protect abortion. So we know that now New York has passed to kill babies even when they're being born up to 9 months after they're born, after they're out of the womb. So they're the only ones, which shouldn't surprise us, because New York is literally Babylon. Even though America at large is a part of Babylon, according to the scriptures, New York is the actual epicenter and the actual city of Babylon. So it makes sense why we see New York still going down the road of destruction. They're going to keep going forward into that judgment and into that wickedness, while, all around it and in other places, in other states, we may see things going the opposite way, back towards God. So that makes a lot of sense. And that actually ties into the vaccination issue that I'm going to update that prophecy on New York. So remember, all this headway with abortion laws, Florida prophecy updated, passed their abortion laws, and now 18 other states are racing to pass their major abortion legislations this year against abortion. So, that takes me up here to Florida. I said I'll hit on the financial collapse in a minute. So that takes me up to the vaccine prophecies and warnings I released. And that ties into New York and what's currently going on. The prophecy update for that is that if you look in the news, you see that there's a pestilence and a judgment of a measles outbreak and mumps, and the measles are spreading and causing an epidemic. And it was allowed on purpose by the enemy and those who are still in power on behalf of the wicked one. And so the main place that the epidemic is hitting and spreading is New York. So it's not surprising that the rest of the country is trying to return back to God. They're trying to knock down abortion. They're trying to pass abortion laws. But New York, the epicenter of Babylon, that great city, it never called Babylon a country, although we can be and are a part of the larger network. It's actually this New York, the city, that's really like the main focus of being Babylon, and that's why we're called to come out of it. And that's kind of what's happening now. The rest of the states are saying, we don't, the move of God is going the other way, returning back to God, saying, we're coming out of this. We're not following you no more. And Babylon is still going forward with wickedness. And so that is why you're seeing the measles outbreak happening there, because they're the only one not just keeping abortion, but even going further to where you're killing fully developed 9-month at birth. Even after you're born, you're laying across the hospital room completely separate from the mother, but you're still getting killed and murdered. So they have progressed even further than just regular abortions to where it's just plain out murder. And so that's why they have that measles outbreak right now. And it's also why they are under quarantine right now. And they are under a state of emergency, and people who don't have the vaccine are not allowed out in public. So that's very serious. So the beast system has actually quarantined, trapped, and is seizing control of the people there in New York, and they're also getting a plague of measles, to the point where they're being forced to accept vaccines if they want to be able to even leave out of their house and go to school and go to the store, or go to any public place. You have to have the vaccine if you want to participate in society. Otherwise, you have to stay basically locked up and imprisoned in your home. This is happening right now. And so as you can see how that prophecy ties into what's happening. So if you notice in the article where I had, forgive me for all the shaking, guys, and blurriness, but in the article, it said that all of those abortion laws, those 18 other states were seeking to pass laws against abortion this year, 2019. So if you notice, every single video in my ministry dating back several years ago, every single thing is coming to its fullness this year. If you notice, all of these events have happened between 2018 and 2019. So it's something special, a window of time as far as harvest and turnaround and fruit being bared, to where every single video of mine is now relevant to what's happening all inside of the same year time frame, and it's very current and relevant. That's kind of just showing you an example of all of these seeds I planted, and now the entire ministry of messages is having a harvest and bearing fruit, and it's growing up all at the same time, because I can just go boom, 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 video by video by video by video, and it's all plugged in to what's happening right now. That is what you call a move of the Lord. So I am going to, I know many of you probably have questions about Obama now. It's not the time for that. There is much more to know and to speak on about that subject, but I'm going to have another video coming up soon to update you guys on what's happening with that. As you can see, 2 years ago, I also was warning about the generation of murder being under judgment and approaching death. That was in regards to abortion. But as you can see, this country, even in, going through all these floods and devastations, this country has went through a lot of punishment regarding that, that evil. But now that the church and the bride and God's people have returned and are doing what they're supposed to do, that's why we're seeing that turnaround. And now that, we're passing these laws and we actually have people in office, God has allowed that grace that are willing to do his will and turn things back to him. Let's see what we have. I'm going to do an entire separate video on an update on California. There's so much happening there. Hold on one second, guys. I need to send someone a message. All right. Thank you for your patience. So, moving on to, if you remember these prophecies I was releasing regarding Europe and the European Union, it's the same exact thing, guys. On one side of the coin, they were being judged and reprimanded and corrected and warned and chastised by the Lord. And the prophecy was judgment and smiting them. And those things already came to pass, which I covered in my videos. So that part of the coin came to pass, the smiting, as far as Europe and the European Union. And if you're not familiar, you can always go back and watch to see how that came to pass. But for the healing part, the flip side of the coin, which I covered in part 1, the Lord is also moving in a good way. So let's take a look at the updates on that side of the coin, because that's what harvest is all about. Bearing fruit, that crop coming up, bearing fruit through all the seeds that have been planted, all the workmanship of the kingdom of God. That yes, even though places may have suffered in judgment, and even though not every single thing can be turned around, there's still going to be a lot of good that can take place. So let me see, find it. So I had many prophecies specifically about France and Europe and the European Union at large. And just like I showed you in Brazil, where there was a Trump leader put in office and a Trump movement happening there, where the president is talking about he cares about following the Bible and he's going to protect Christianity in Brazil. And that's the kind of leadership he wants to be, protected under God and follow God. And that's how he wants to rule his country, following in the influence of Trump. It's also spreading to Europe and the whole world, but especially in Europe. As you can see, France, the Yellow Vest protests, the overthrowing of Europe, all of the riots and revolutions. This is movements that are overturning the rule and control of the beast system. Things are being shaken up, okay, pulling down those strongholds. And the people are uprising and they're demanding and chanting they want a Trump. They want a leader like Trump. They want someone who's going to return back to those values and take care of their own country and focus back on following God and prosperity and conservatism. And so there's a massive movement in France right now where, they don't want to be ruled over. They don't want to follow that path of those wicked beast system leaders anymore. And that's happening right now. And they're actually demanding the wicked president that they have in France, they're actually demanding that he leave their country. They're driving him out of his own country, and they don't want him there anymore. And they're serious. And they're burning the whole city down. They basically feel like we're going to have a turnaround to go in the right direction, or we're not going to have anything at all, because they're burning their whole city down. They rather burn everything down than keep going in the direction of the beast system. That's the kind of momentum the move of God is producing right now. And then this is just saying a rise in nationalism across Europe. Far-right parties have made significant electoral gains. So just the same way the Lord snatched the election out of Hillary Clinton's hand and kept Barack Obama from going forward with his martial law and taking over, and they brought Donald Trump in to be a sort of restrainer to restrain back that beast system from progressing. The same thing is happening in Europe, across Europe. The conservatives and the Christians and the nationalists and the right-wing parties are starting to overtake the socialists, the beast system people, the European Union, the United Nations grip that it's had on Europe for so long and been in control. God is reversing it and retaking those territories and putting his leaders in. And it's just really a massive movement across the entire Europe. And it's following suit. These Trump-type figures, these anointed David-type kings and leaders, God is going to be tearing down the thrones of the wicked and replacing his leadership, his church in power and control to do his will, to bring about his kingdom. Wow, guys, I see this is at 21 minutes. It's so much. Like, the Lord is doing so much. I could literally probably make 10 videos just on updating prophecies alone. So I think I am going to go into a part 3 just so that each piece is not terribly long. But I want to kind of go back to the very last video that I left off on before I took my little spiritual hiatus. This is the last video I shared with you guys in the last prophecy the Lord had me release. And that's very significant because I was talking about the new year. We're going into a new season. A harvest and outpouring was coming. A mighty spiritual move of promises, the promised land. And these are the kind of hopeful and miraculous things that he had me prophesying about right before I left exactly 1 year ago. And we were ringing in the true new year, 2018. And if you notice, I've returned, which I didn't plan. I had to wait for his permission, and he just gave me permission. So basically, almost exactly, and remember I was saying like March 17th marks the new year. Well, here we are, almost, it's about a month off because we're in April, but you get the idea. Commemorating and marking exactly 1 year when I gave all those harvest, new life, March, spring, forth, new season, fruit-bearing harvest prophecies exactly 1 year later. Everything I'm sharing with you with like Brazil, all over the world, all of these updates, what Trump has done, these laws, how this has been changed, that's been changed, this has been passed. All of those things occurred inside of this 1 year time period between 2018 and right now into spring of 2019. So that kind of updates you and gives you an understanding of how this prophecy came to pass. And we're just in the beginning of it. We haven't even began. These are all of the seeds that have been planted there. Don't you know how when the winter is over and it's the first sign of spring and you see the little tiny green shoots starting to spring up out the ground and little tiny leaves are coming back? All of these huge things, these laws, everything turning around, as huge and miraculous as they are, that's just the very beginning springing forth and popping up out of the ground. We have a massive fruit-filled harvest that hasn't even began to spread across the world and to spread through the house of God, starting at the top, like I said, in governments, and systems and laws and territories, but then it's going to eventually trickle all the way down the harvest, and everything that you've planted and we've planted. Remember, the Lord said, if the seed you have planted, I've been planted in good ground, and if what the work you have done and the path you have taken has been led by the Spirit and by the instruction of the Lord, remember he said, those servants that served him well, they reaped 100-fold. And so we're already starting to bring that harvest in of 100-fold. We're talking about entire nations, Brazil. We're talking about countries and territories with millions of people in them are now having godly leaders put over them, are now being led in the right direction, are now having wicked laws knocked down and wicked practices not being allowed, and things are being put on track towards following righteousness and God's laws. Okay, in countries around the world, we're talking about hundreds and thousands and millions of people. So this is how even, an everyday person, you may think, oh, I don't even have a ministry. I've never made a video. I've never spoken out. Just because I'm the mouthpiece of this ministry, it's not my ministry alone. It's everyone who has been here in the Spirit, working with me, praying with me, toiling with me, planting seeds with me. We're all a part of reaping that harvest. We're all a part of, all of these 100-fold things that are returning. They're going to return to us, starting, like I said at the top. This is just the beginning, but then it's going to trickle all the way down into the church and our ministries and our destinies and our purpose, guys. So many of us have purposes and destinies for our life we can't even imagine, we haven't even stepped into. There's so many rewards that are just sitting, waiting to be claimed and collected that people don't even know that are theirs. So the Lord is trying to lead us into that promised land to claim what's rightfully ours. There's so many jobs and positions and businesses, and it's going to trickle down into our personal lives, our families, the people around us, our relationships. That's how the harvest is going to spread. So we're just at the beginning of it. So don't just say, oh, that's wonderful, but, don't get bitter and selfish and just focus on yourself and say, that's great, but what did that got to do with me? What did that got to do with my life and my suffering and my lack of healing and my finances and my persecution? Don't become selfish like that, because you're going to miss out on everything that the Lord is doing and what he wants to do, and how that's going to return fruitful for you, is going to reward you. It's going to be 100-fold reward for you on a personal level. So just have faith and keep, doing the right thing, and in due season, you will reap everything that you have coming to you. The Lord is not a thief. He's not going to steal or withhold anything from you that's justly not, that you deserve and belongs to you. The enemy will try to come in and get us discouraged, saying, this is what you dedicated your whole life for. You did the right thing and you're still in this low place. You still have nothing. You're still suffering with all these illnesses. You're still scraping pennies together to pay your bills. He's forgot about you. You just wasted your life on trusting the Lord. Don't listen to that discouragement. The Lord has not forgotten his true people. And guys, we have so many rewards to collect and so much fruitful harvest to bring in for ourselves and for others and everyone around us and people around the world, if we just meet the Lord where he is and follow him and have faith in him and don't give up and continue to serve him and trust him. You have no idea where this stuff is going to lead us. So I will let you guys go for part 2 of this update. I will share a couple more updates in closing in a part 3. Bye.